September 11, 2001, a day that will be remembered forever as a day when thousands of innocent people lost their lives in a despicable terrorist attack. But for thousands of others, it will also be remembered as a day of miracles. Or was it just luck that saved the lives of so many people that day? Could it have been something more? Do the events of September 11 provide us with irrefutable proof that there is something in our lives that can be called a miracle? Just what is it that makes a miracle? Is it the invisible hands guiding a woman out of the burning towers to safety? Or a mysterious stranger who disappeared into thin air after helping another person down 40 flights of stairs? Two men were trapped on the 86th floor of one of the towers, yet they actually survived the building's collapse. Are these realities miracles or just the luck of the draw? Is there proof miracles actually do happen? As difficult as it is even today to choke back the tears and heartbreak for those who were lost, we are stunned by the realization that many thousands more were spared. And within that number are stories of amazing, even unexplainable circumstances that somehow made the difference between life and death. The brutal attacks of September 11 opened our eyes to the destructive power of pure evil. But in the quiet aftermath, it also gives us the opportunity to wonder at the possibility that incredible miracles were also taking place amid the horror. We'll take a closer look at the possibilities in just a moment. On September 11, 2001, thousands of people made their way to work at the World Trade Center's Twin Towers. By all accounts, it was just an average day, until just before 9 a.m., when all hell broke loose. Terrorists turned American jetliners into weapons of war, and the destruction that resulted was too unbelievable for words. When the planes hit the towers, thousands of people were trapped inside. Without hesitation, rescue personnel responded to the unfolding drama. Little did they know that in a matter of minutes, a sickening number of people would be dead. And yet, in the middle of this unbelievable madness, strange events were taking place. Some people went so far as to call them miracles. But were they?
These survival stories that are coming out of the World Trade Center are really incredible. There were people who were never late for work. And then for some strange reason, maybe they stopped for coffee, maybe they took the children to school, they weren't there when it happened. Then there was Howard Lutnick, president of the bond trading firm, Cantor Fitzgerald. His firm occupied 5 floors near the top of the North Tower. That was the day his son started kindergarten, and he decided to be late so he could take his son to school.
On any other day, the mundane events that kept people away from the Trade Center might have been called coincidence. But on September 11th, an extraordinary number of diversions saved hundreds of people from certain death. Why did they happen on that particular day? Was it simple luck, or do miracles, in fact, happen?
When we talk about luck or chance, we're talking about fortuitous events or random occurrences. Is it possible that this is what happened at the World Trade Center? Yes, it's possible, but when you consider the sheer number of people who weren't there that day, it doesn't seem very likely. It seems like something else was behind it. After all, a random occurrence is something that to all appearances has no specific pattern or purpose. And yet in this event, we see a pattern emerging. People who should have been in the Trade Center towers that day ended up being absent, either because of strange circumstances or their own uncharacteristic decision. Because of this, hundreds of lives were saved. Whose purpose was it? I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that it was God's purpose. Happy little unexpected surprises, that's what could be called luck. But in the total context here, there seems to be something more than luck, something miraculous. A miracle is an event that defies natural explanation. It's not a natural or normal occurrence. In short, a miracle takes what seems to be impossible and makes it possible, like a terminally ill person who is suddenly and inexplicably cured. A miracle goes beyond luck and enters into the realm of the unknown. Some say the unknowable, and that's an area where science is not willing to go.
A miracle, by definition, is a one-time event, a singular occurrence that, by definition, is not repeatable. And in science, we have to be able to repeat something to see if it's real. So, miracles are not real.
Is it true that the mere possibility of miracles flies in the face of scientific reason? Many people believe that in order to be considered rational, one must completely discount the possibility of divine intervention. If that's so, it would be difficult to explain several amazing events that transpired in Lower Manhattan on the morning of September 11th. Like the woman trapped in a smoke-filled hallway who was unable to find her way until a pair of unseen but very real hands grabbed hold of her and led her to safety. Then there was a woman who was guided down 40 flights of stairs by a man she'd never seen before. When the woman finally made it to safety, she searched in vain for the stranger who had been at her side the whole way down, but she found nothing but smoke. Can these and hundreds of other mysterious stories which emerged from the rubble of the World Trade Center be explained by mere luck? Or were they, in fact, miracles designed to save these lives?
Most people are looking, when they see miracles, for something transcendent, something beyond the here and now, some deeper significance to the mundane, good and bad events of everyday life. And they're trying to graft onto that something that gives them additional meaning, when in fact we can get our own meanings from the kind acts that people perform and from the goodness of human nature.
Skeptics would like us to believe that every event that came out of the World Trade Center was just a matter of random chance. The unseen hands that led a woman to safety could have been a heroic firefighter. The person who led another woman down 40 flights of steps could have been a good Samaritan that disappeared into the crowd. But some of the other stories that come out of the World Trade Center are just too fantastic to be attributed to luck. Seems like it's more reasonable to say that there was divine intervention involved.
In the World Trade Center, 99% of the people who could survive did survive. That's 99% of the people below the plane crash. The first plane hit the North Tower at 8:46 a.m. on September 11th. It hit between the 93rd and the 98th floors. The 92nd floor had all of the stairwells disabled. Everyone from the 92nd floor above in the 110-story building died. But on the 91st floor, everyone lived. On the 90th floor, everyone lived. The line between life and death that day was really as straight as a steel beam. The second tower was hit 16 minutes later at 9:03. That plane hit between the 78th and the 84th floor. In the North Tower, all three stairwells were disabled. People couldn't get out. Your fate was sealed the moment the plane hit. In the South Tower, it was a little different. It hit at an angle, sideways, and it twisted at just the last minute. The result was that Stairway A, one of three, remained open from top to bottom, but only 4 people used it to get out. There were many other people in the stairways who could have used it, but they chose to go up in search of a helicopter rescue that was not possible that day. The others got out just before the building collapsed. 99% of the people below the plane crash line lived that day, which is pretty remarkable considering that there were fires, there was smoke, there was falling debris weighing tons. There was really a lot of ways to die that day, but amazingly most people escaped and avoided them.
Is it possible that there was something more than luck that saved the lives of thousands of people on that tragic Tuesday in September? It's comforting to think so. But why is it that most scientists won't even consider the possibility that miracles occur? Can the natural laws of science help us explain away these incredible events? Or are there some things that simply defy explanation? Do scientists find themselves in the awkward position of only believing in their own brand of miracles? In any case, if something miraculous wasn't going on, we're about to hear about two of the luckiest men who ever lived. Mind-boggling may be the only way to describe what happened at the World Trade Center towers the morning of September 11th, but the most miraculous story of all emerged in the first few hours after the attack, and the sheer impossibility of it inspired an entire nation.
Will Himano and John McLaughlin were among 5 Port Authority officers racing through the underground concourse between the two towers looking for more rescue equipment. They filled a laundry cart with supplies and headed for the nearest freight elevator. But the first tower collapsed around them in a matter of seconds. 2 of the officers were killed instantly. As Officer Dom Pizzulo struggled to free his partners from the rubble, the second tower collapsed, killing him. Officers Jimeno and McLaughlin were buried alive under 1.2 million tons of steel, concrete, and debris. Trauma surgeon Ken Testa played a key role in the rescue effort, which occurred an incredible 14 hours after the towers collapsed.
The ESU police started walking over to me and they said that they had found somebody trapped in the rubble at Ground Zero, and he may need his leg amputated in order to remove him, free him from the rubble. So we collected all our instruments and we jumped in the truck and they drove me to Ground Zero. I had gotten out and walked into the pile, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. The rubble pile, it had to be at least 75 to 80 feet high from the ground level. And there was a human chain of firemen with hoses and passing medical supplies up this human chain into the pile where they found this first Port Authority officer. And when I finally saw the first victim, I looked down at him and I asked him his name, and I was taken back by the fact that the man was holding a conversation with me, because all around me there was just no signs of life but the emergency workers, and you would never think that anybody could survive 3 or 4 hours, let alone, I mean, just survive the collapse of the building. Then to survive in this dust-choking, diesel-ridden, soaking wet environment was amazing. And when he looked at me and spoke, I'll never forget. I mean, that's burned into my brain. I asked him what his name was, and he looked up at me and told me his name. And I asked him, you know, where were you? And he told me where he was. And he says, how am I doing? And I said, you are the luckiest man in the world. It was miraculous that anyone survived the attacks on the World Trade Center on September 11th.
How is it possible that not one, but 2 men could be buried under tons of twisted metal and debris and survive? Were the laws of the universe in perfect alignment? Or must we press beyond the boundaries of logic for an explanation?
What are the chances that a man on the 78th floor of the World Trade Center could have survived the tragic events of that day, particularly if he was blind? Michael Hinkson was leading the training session for new employees when American Flight 11 crashed into the South Tower. Assisted by his guide dog, a yellow lab named Roselle, Hinkson was able to navigate 78 stories and emerge safely on the ground floor. Incredibly, Roselle remained calm and focused throughout the chaos, while Hinkson says that the sound of thunder usually immobilizes her in fear. Whether skeptics want to admit it or not, that's divine intervention. The reason we know there's divine intervention in a miracle is that a miracle is by definition an act of God. It's a supernatural act and it must have a supernatural cause. It has purpose and there must be a purposer. About a week before September 11th, I was speaking to a Chinese Christian group from New York, many of whom worked in the World Trade Center. And so after the terrorist attack occurred, I contacted them and asked how they were doing, how many were saved, how many were lost, and I was told that the entire group had gone out to eat as a church group the night before. They all got sick, and so none of them appeared at work the next day.
If we define a miracle as some supernatural happenings, there's no evidence that there were any miracles surrounding the 9/11 events. If there were miracles, it would be the miraculous nature of human kindness and how many people came through to help other people. I don't think there's anything supernatural about that. I think it's part of human nature.
For hundreds of years, philosophers and scientists have maintained that miracles cannot occur in a world governed by the immutable laws of nature. But is that true? The amazing survival stories that have come out of the terrorist attacks on September 11th have many people wondering, is there something going on here that the experts are ignoring? Is the miraculous more than just a romantic concept? Strange as it seems, these odd coincidences, as skeptics like to call them, just keep right on happening to everyday people in everyday circumstances. 50 years before the attack on the World Trade Center, a similar, though much smaller, miracle took place. It, too, garnered national attention. Can the saving of all these lives also be explained away as simply good luck? On the night of March 1st, 1950, Reverend Walter Klemple of the West Side Baptist Church in Beatrice, Nebraska, had just returned home for dinner. He had to be back at the church for choir practice in a half hour, so there wasn't much time. But even though they ate quickly, the Reverend and his family were running late. Choir practice was to begin at 7:20, and it was already 7:25. That's when it happened. As they hurried to get out the door, they heard a tremendous explosion. The church building erupted into a massive fireball. And as far as Reverend Klemple knew, the church choir members were trapped inside. Reverend Klemple had been preparing his apology all through dessert. His choir members were always on time, most even a little early. He was certain he was the only one who would be coming in late. Did the raging inferno before him represent not only the loss of his building, but the loss of members of his congregation as well? As he stood there staring in disbelief, he wondered how he would ever face their families. To the people of Beatrice, Nebraska, the huge explosion that rocked their small town on a comparable scale was not unlike the World Trade Center disaster. The loss of life, the Reverend was sure, would be disastrous to his community. But, just like the city of New York, the whole story had yet to be told.
There were 15 choir members in all at the West Side Baptist Church. On the Wednesday night when the explosion occurred, everyone knew that choir practice started at 7:20 sharp. That's when it always started. But this night, it would be different. Firefighters at the scene said the explosion was probably caused by a natural gas leak, which would explain the force of the blast. It shattered windows in nearby homes and even forced the local radio station off the air. Yet for some reason, every member of the choir was late that night. Every single one.
The story of what happened that night at the West Side Baptist Church was so amazing, Life magazine featured it in their next issue. All across the country, people were asking themselves, why was the choir late? Was it luck? Or was God watching out for these people? You be the judge.
Reverend Klemple and his wife never made it to the church that night because at the last moment, Mrs. Klemple noticed that her daughter's dress was soiled, and she took the time to iron a clean dress for her. Another singer, named LaDonna Vandergrift, was at home that night finishing her high school geometry homework. She was having trouble with a certain problem and decided to be late to choir practice so she could finish up. A few blocks away, 2 more choir members who normally shared a ride to practice were having car problems. They called LaDonna to ask for a lift and she agreed to pick them up. But she told them they'd have to wait until her homework was done. Another woman skipped choir practice that night because her mother needed help getting the house ready for a church meeting the next day. And on it went. One man got caught up in writing a letter and didn't realize the time. A woman fell asleep after dinner, and when her mother tried to wake her, she fell back asleep again. Both women were in the choir, and both were late.
When the explosion occurred, the walls of the church were forced outward, and the heavy wooden roof came crashing down. Anyone inside the building would have been instantly killed, but miraculously, the church was empty. Was it luck? Or was it a series of tiny little miracles that delayed the choir members? None of the singers could have known the danger that lay in store for them, so they could not have specifically asked for God's help in that event. Yet it would appear that He provided it anyway. Why?
For centuries, philosophers and scientists have been arguing against miracles. They say, first of all, that they're contrary to the laws of nature, and secondly, their singularities and natural laws are regular events. But what they forget is their own pet theories. Most scientists now believe that the entire universe began with a one-time explosion in which all space, time, and matter came into existence out of nothing. This is an event that's never been repeated, and there's no natural cause for it. So it has all the earmarks of a miracle. And if scientists can accept the Big Bang Theory, why can't they accept smaller miracles? I believe that many lives are saved every day by divine intervention. This should come as no surprise to us because God created life, and that's His way of protecting life. Of course, skeptics don't believe that God created life. Instead, they believe in some sort of spontaneous generation of life on Earth, a one-time event that has never been repeated and for which there is no known explanation within the laws of science. But they'd rather believe that than believe the miracle of divine creation.
Is it possible that the information contained within every living creature belies the greatest miracle of all, life itself? And if that's true, how hard is it to accept the notion that there could be an intelligent designer of all life who has an interest in watching over His creation? Many scientists would have us believe that life itself is a result of random chance, but the proof of that assertion remains elusive.
We're sometimes troubled by the idea that God performs miracles in some lives but not in others. And yet when you think about it, if miracles occurred to everyone every day, they wouldn't be miracles, and they therefore wouldn't be proof of the presence of God in our lives.
A lot of people wonder why were some lives lost and some saved. I heard a famous radio commentator say he went to encourage a young man who was dying of cancer. Instead of encouraging him, the young man looked up at him and said, "I don't believe the divine architect of the universe ever builds a staircase that leads to nowhere." Looks to us like those lives that were lost were staircases that lead to nowhere, but not to the divine architect of the universe. He has a good purpose for everything.
No one will ever forget the tragedy that took place on September 11th, nor will we forget the amazing stories of the people who survived, people who shouldn't have had a chance, and yet, by some miracle, they did. Or was it luck? Maybe. But one question remains unanswered. At what point do we cross over from the realm of chance into the realm of miracles? It's something to think about.